So at the conference that I was at in the US recently, Google was one of the presenters, and I met with Preston Holmes and asked him some questions about some topics that he discussed during the presentation. One of them was the topic of hybrid clouds, but then they were really talking about hybrid applications. So what's a hybrid application versus a hybrid cloud? I asked him about that. I also asked him about containers and why containers and what is next coming in the world of containers and Docker, because they're really pushing Docker and containers as part of that. And the other thing was, a bit way out there, what is the advanced technology group in Google doing at the moment? What's the new thing that's coming out? So I hope you enjoy what Preston had to say. Comments about hybrid cloud, and you were talking about hybrid applications. What do you mean by that?
So I think that the term hybrid cloud is another phrase that there's no consensus or easy agreement on the definition of. I think there's a bit of a misnomer because a hybrid is a true blending of properties across two distinct and different entities. And so what really people, I think, intend when they're talking about hybrid cloud is a hybrid application where part of the application runs on-prem, another portion runs on a public cloud. The ability to run workloads across both public cloud and on-prem independently isn't really hybrid because you're not blending the sort of requirements of each across an application. You're simply running one or more applications here, one or more copies or clones of it somewhere else, or just different applications in different locations. And I guess I'm now going to coin that term the mosaic cloud.
Excellent. Well, that's already been registered. Matt did it this afternoon, so that was a good choice. You talked about people being hybrid by accident or by intent or by migration. What did you mean by that?
So I think when people talk a hybrid cloud state, it's important to realize that are you talking about that state of being as sort of your end target intent, and that is your goal is to be operating for the long term as a hybrid environment, or is hybrid a necessary sort of intermediate state of transition where you have certain workloads that you're not ready to retire or rework, so need to be running on existing infrastructure, and you have new stuff you're building on the cloud? You're going to be technically in a hybrid state, but that isn't necessarily your intent. It's just how you have to be in some form of transition.
All right, Preston, I was very interested to hear your presentation today, particularly about the hot topic of Docker. Why is that important, and what's coming up next in that area?
Well, I think the main thing Docker brought to the world of containers, which were not new when Docker was released, was the right sort of developer experience model. And Docker really understood what it was that developers needed from that set of technologies and brought a set of conveniences and packaging around what the lower level technology offered, but in a way that developers found sort of really a natural fit for the way they worked. And that to me is why it's really kind of taken off among developers, and then it's really companies who are listening to developers who are kind of paying attention to the cycle of growth in its adoption. As far as where it's going, I think what Docker itself does not provide in its own sort of ecosystem straightforward today, it's obviously all fast moving. So what I say now might wait 5 minutes and it'll change. But really the understanding of production requirements for deploying orchestrated container-based systems, and that's the thing that Google's had, I think it's safe to say, more experience running containers in production than anyone else. A couple really interesting projects that came out of the ATAP group, the Advanced Technology Group at Google. Really, they have sort of the freedom to do the crazy sort of science experiments, and one that caught my attention was called Project Soli, which involved miniaturizing a radar in that spectrum of the IR spectrum to something that can fit on a watch. And so that one of the things they found is that the way we interact with touch surfaces can only scale down so far. And so the radar allows you to use your fingers and the fine dexterity that we as primates have with our fingers to do gestures and controls at very, very small resolutions, combined with machine learning to determine the actual sort of intent of the interaction.